The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and moss, its weight pressing against Taisea's senses like a forgotten memory. Above, the sky swirled with endless grays, clouds twisting and folding into each other in chaotic patterns. The forest was alive, yet unnervingly still. Its fragmented melody carried on the rustling of unseen leaves. Shadows danced across Taisea's face, light from a fading sun refracting off his somber expression. He stood motionless, his figure wrapped in an aura of uncertainty. The faint hum of the forest seemed to echo his thoughts as he murmured softly, "Who am I?" The words lingered in the air like an unanswered question, swallowed whole by the forest silence. He exhaled sharply, his breath visible against the chill that had begun to rise. A slave to the past, he confessed, his voice trembling with regret. The forest seemed to react, its towering trees swaying uneasily as though recoiling from his revelation. A subtle chill crept into the air, brushing against his skin like a cold reminder. He clenched his fists, his golden eyes narrowing against the shadows encroaching on his thoughts. "What if I awaken," he continued, his voice more resolute, "and it's all been a dream?" The rustling around him grew louder, frantic and discordant, as if the trees themselves questioned his words. The air thickened, pressing against his chest. Taisea's voice faltered, the weight of his doubt evident. Will I awake or fall into deeper slumber? The forest stilled suddenly, an unnatural silence falling over the space. Taisea's eyes darted around, searching for an answer in the void that seemed to stretch endlessly ahead. "There appears to be no escape," he muttered, stepping forward cautiously. His boots crunched against the uneven ground, the sound sharp and deliberate. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though the earth itself resisted his progress. "Down the Yagatoon," he whispered, his tone resigned. "It's the only way." The trees parted abruptly, revealing a jagged pathway lined with black stones. The wind returned, carrying faint whispers that seemed to hum a question just beyond comprehension. Taisea paused, tilting his head, his ears straining to catch their meaning. "I hear the forest," he said, his voice trembling, "but what is it saying?" The path ahead was uneven, twisting into the distance and vanishing into a dense, ominous mist. Shadows flickered unnaturally, their forms shifting like restless spirits. Taisea hesitated, his gaze lowering, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his uncertainty. "No peace out here," he murmured, "where the flood looms." The wind howled briefly, its mournful cry echoing through the forest before fading into a haunting silence. Taisea's voice rose, almost pleading, as he fought against the despair closing in around him. "This cannot be real, for it goes against what I knew, logically." Ahead, the ground dipped sharply into a cube pit carved into the earth. The shadows within were impenetrable, the pit's depth unknowable. In its center, a jagged black flake of stone jutted from the earth, its surface gleaming faintly. Taisea approached cautiously, bending to pick up the shard. The moment his fingers grazed its surface, the ground beneath him rumbled violently. A pillar erupted from the earth beside the pit, its sleek surface adorned with the same black smear that marred the stone in Taisea's hand. The connection was undeniable, and his breath caught in his throat. "A reflection," he murmured, awe coloring his tone, "a piece of truth." The wind stilled as he studied the shard, its surface pulsating faintly as if alive. "Materials," he said softly, his voice trailing off. "Well, they should be used." A biting cold crept into the air, the temperature plummeting rapidly. Frost began to spread across the pillar, its crystalline edges glinting in the dim light. Taisea's breath came in visible puffs, each exhale a stark reminder of the encroaching cold. "Winter," he muttered, "it slowly creeps." The frost continued its relentless spread, encasing the surrounding terrain in a shimmering sheet of ice. Taisea's gaze lifted, his expression hardening with resolve. "Will I stay asleep in my slumber?" he asked aloud, his voice steady. "No, now is the most important season." His tone shifted, growing firmer as he stepped forward. "I must find my way home. The Yagatoon takes me to Eden." The ground beneath Taisea's feet rippled suddenly as if the very fabric of reality was shifting. The forest dissolved into a stark white room surrounded by four seamless walls. The surfaces shimmered unnaturally, their edges extending and sharpening into fang-like protrusions. A low growl reverberated through the space, shaking the ground beneath him. From one wall, a shadowy form materialized, Gulo, its figure flickering like a corrupted projection. The creature's presence was primal and unnerving, its deep resonant voice cutting through the silence. The call of hunger, encoded destiny. Taisea stepped back instinctively, his body tense. His eyes locked on the shadowy figure. Gulo Gulo twisted, its form splintering into impossible shapes before collapsing into a single point of inky blackness. Shadows surged forward, consuming Taisea's form in an instant. For a brief moment he was lost to the darkness, his body flickering like a flame caught in the wind. When the shadows receded, the walls had vanished, leaving Taisea standing on an endless white platform. The surface was pristine and unbroken, stretching infinitely in all directions. Around him, alchemical symbols representing fire, water, earth, air, ether, and stone materialized as glowing holograms. They orbited him slowly, their luminous forms casting faint reflections on the white platform. Taisea's voice was steady, filled with newfound resolve. "The platinum ascension of image," he declared. "Awaken from the foot," he continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. "A demi-titan, bloodline of the bear." The holographic symbols intensified, their light illuminating the void. The air vibrated with a deep rhythmic hum, as though the universe itself resonated with his words. "The master of the 6 elements," Taisea proclaimed, "a shaman of the forest and the plains." The space around him began to shift and contort, waves of energy rippling outward as if responding to his presence. "Awaken to the metagame," he said, his voice unwavering. "Vibrations, clockwork destiny, materializing history." The platform shuddered briefly, then stabilized. Taisea glanced down as faint patterns began to etch themselves into the surface beneath his feet. The lines formed a sigillized, intricate asana. He stepped into the pattern, his movements fluid. Flames flickered to life around him, their heat anointing him with purpose. A steeple of stone rose from the platform's edge, capturing the moment in volumetric perfection. The surrounding energy swirled into a vortex, its pull both chaotic and calculated. The vibrations intensified, the hum reaching a crescendo as if the gods themselves stirred in response to Taisea's awakening. Standing firm, his gaze unwavering, Taisea spoke a quiet promise to the cosmos: "The gods shall awaken."